right? So today we are going to see authorizations, and even in the Postman also we have seen different type of authorizations or authentication. So today we are going to see different type of authorizations. So what are the different types of authorizations or supported by rest assured? So again, different authorizations, we can say basic authentication, digest authentication, preemptive authentication, different type of authentications are supported. And here we need to understand what is the difference between authentication, authorization. There are two terms are there: authentication, authorization. Can anyone tell me what is the difference between authentication and authorization? Authentication, authorization. What is the difference? Authentication, authorization. So authentication means what? It will check whether the user is valid or not, right? So whatever the details are they are providing, like username and password, so they are basically check valid or not, valid credentials or not. That is authentication. What is authorization? Authorization means what? Authorization means the user is valid, but he will check the access privileges or permissions, we can say. Okay, the permissions we will check for valid. Only valid users can be authorization. So only authenticated users can have authorization. So first level of security is authentication. Means the user is valid or not. So that we will check. And in authorization, we will check the permissions, or we can say access. What are all things he can access? So that is all about authorization. Okay, the basic difference. Now, so in rest assured, what kind of authentications are supported? So there are different authentications are supported: basic authentication, digest authentication, and we also have something called preemptive authentication. Also, we have bearer token authentication, and apart from this, we have OAuth authentication. Yes, OAuth 1 and 1.0, 2.0. So 1.0 is almost duplicated. So instead of that, 2.0 come into picture. So OAuth 1.0, 2.0. So these are the two other authentications. And apart from this, API key authentication. If you have any key to authenticate API, we can also use API key. So these are the different kinds of authentications and authorizations are supported in rest assured. So we will see one by one. And again, it is very difficult to get the APIs which are having these kinds of authentications. And Postman is given some APIs to check basic, digest, preemptive authentications. And we will have some more APIs, and which is using bearer token, OAuth authentication, or API authentication. So whatever APIs we are using in the Postman, so almost the same kind of APIs we are going to use it here to perform authorization. Let me open the Postman. Okay, so let's go to our project. So let's create new package. New class. Authentications. Okay. So we'll see one by one all kinds of authentication. So the first type of authentication is basic authentication. So very basic means what? Just we provide username and password. So authentication will be successful. So basic authentication. So let me write one simple test. Void test basic authentication. basic authentication. So here, let me put test annotation. Priority equal to 1. So in basic authentication, we use just to username and password. So what you'll do is, we will have an API here. Just a second. Okay. So let's say given. And inside this, first of all, before that, we need to import all static packages. So let me just import them. Okay, so given, when, then. Okay, so here, whenever you specify authentications for APIs, that should be part of given. Okay, because there's a prerequisite. So in the given section, how we can specify the authentication? So by using a method called auth. There is a method called auth. So inside this, there are different type of authentications will be here. So you can see here, these are all different type of authentications will be shown. Digest authentication, basic authentication, OAuth authentications, preemptive. Different type of authentications will be available in auth method. So here I'm taking basic authentication. And this will take two parameters. One is username and password. So my username is Postman. And my password is, this is the API which is given by Postman itself. So here I'm passing password. So password is password. Okay, this is the given part. So prerequisite. And what is the request I'm going to send is get request. And the URL which they have provided is this one. Let me copy it. This is the URL. So which will ask you username and password. So we are passing the username and password as part of authentication. And how we will know whether it's successful or not? So we can just verify the status code. Dot status code. That should be 200. And also we can verify the body. So if I just go to Postman, and before doing automation, you can just cross check in the Postman. So you can go to basic authentication. And this is the URL which we are going to send. And the basic authentication, this is the one. So this is the URL and basic auth, and we are passing the username and password. So when you send this request, you will get one response here. In the body section, you get some message authenticated is true. So we can validate 200 status code along with the message what we are captured here. So that you can say status code is 200, and where the status code is available inside the body section. So what I can say is dot body. From that body, what we are expecting inside the body, authenticated should be true. So that value should equal to true. So this is the value we are expecting. And if you want to log all the messages, I can say log dot all, end the statement. So this is how we can specify the basic authentication. So not only basic authentication, all kinds of authentication should be part of given. So by using this particular method, auth method, we can pass any type of authentication. And this is straightforward, and just pass the username and password and it will be authenticated. So let's execute. Okay, so now it is executed. So we can just look at here. This is your response body. So with the username and password, it is successfully authenticated. Now the same API also supported digest authentication, and also preemptive authentication. Because almost basic, digest, preemptive. So these three almost similar, because all three authentications we use username and password. All three types of authentications we use username and password, but internally the algorithm will be different. Okay, so username and password we will pass to authenticate these APIs, but internally the algorithm will be different. So basic authentication algorithm works differently. Digest and preemptive authentication algorithms will work differently. But the user perspective, you won't see any difference because you just pass username and password. So this particular API will support basic, digest, and also preemptive authentications. And don't expect same kind of authentications will be there in the Postman. So Postman is having their own authentication mechanism. Rest assured support their own authentication mechanism, but there are some common things also will be there. So this particular API will support basic, same API will support basic authentication, digest authentication, and also preemptive authentication. So what we can do is we can just copy the same thing. And this time, let us try to use other types of authentications. So this time I'm trying to use digest authentication. So when I use digest authentication, so here we have to take another method called auth.digest. So this is the only difference. And again, parameters are same, username and password. So the only difference is authentication. So internal algorithms will be different. So here when I use basic, directly the username password will go to the server.